Well, welcome everyone to today's presentation by BMC Software and D-Zone on Airflow and Control M, where data pipelines meet business applications in production. My name is Corey Knowles. I'm a managing editor of IT and business intelligence at Technology Advice, and I'll be your moderator today. We're excited to be joined by Robbie Dick and Joe Goldberg. Robbie is a BMC Principal Solutions Marketing Manager, and Joe is an evangelist at BMC Software. Just a quick note, we will have a Q&A session toward the end of today's presentation. So as we're going along, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A section so we have them ready when it's time to go. Now, please join me in welcoming Robbie and Joe.
Corey, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. As Corey mentioned, my name is Robbie Dick, and it's my pleasure to kind of start us off today. I'll turn it over to Joe a little bit later on for a demo, and then we'll both be back together to answer some Q&A. But very excited to kind of start us off here and talk about Airflow and Control M, where data pipelines meet business applications in production. Now, before we even get going with the content, we want to open with a poll question. So we have a first poll question here available that we'd like you to answer. If you could take 5 or 10 seconds, give it a quick read, and then give us an answer if you could. I'll be quiet for just a second. Okay, looks like we've got some answers coming in. We can leave it open for another little bit here. Just kind of give us an idea of what the landscape might look like out there for those of you that are attending. So I believe you can see, but we're getting close to 50 responses. Fair number not using Airflow. Which surprises me a little bit based upon the title, but that's great actually, because it's not just a webinar or a message only when the Airflow is involved, although that's a key part of it, as you might guess, because it's in the title. But really what we're talking about is how enterprise orchestration for business applications, along with modern data pipelines, is beneficial to all involved, the business and all the various personas. So great. Okay, I'm going to proceed. Thank you for that. We've got another poll question a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and get started. You all have environments that are incredibly complex and probably growing in their complexity. And there's a few constituents or specific things or people involved. So you've got applications, data, and infrastructure elements that deliver business outcomes. And of course, you have a number of people in the organization that are responsible for all of the above, or in this case, all of the below, all of those applications, data, and infrastructure elements, and those business services they deliver. So as we start to build it out a little bit, at least the image here, it's by no means 100% representative example, but the infrastructure, data, and application landscape is, as I mentioned earlier, complex and ever-changing. There may be some of those components that have been in place for potentially dozens of years at your organization, helping to deliver business services or outcomes. They may be expected to stay in place for decades more to help deliver those services, right? So that those may be considered system of record elements or legacy, but that's such a loaded word. I hate to use it, but I use it and then I just describe it. Legacy doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean problematic. It doesn't mean that it's going away or it needs to go away. It just means it's been there for a while and it's important to the business and to the outcomes that you deliver. And in many cases, likely will remain that way. But of course, every day, it's probably not an exaggeration, maybe slight, maybe it's more like every week or every month, that new applications or data elements or infrastructure components are added to your environment. So again, this just is listing, 20 or 30 of those elements. But as we start to build out some of the representative business outcomes, or those digital services, I don't even like calling them digital services anymore, the outcomes, what your business needs to deliver for your internal and external customers. We've got like 10 or so of those listed on the bottom here. Again, this is an area where you probably have hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of outcomes or business services that you deliver. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, now we start to see the people column kind of explode or expand out a little bit. Again, this is, what we have listed here really pales in comparison to probably what the true environment at all y'all's organization looks like. But whether it's operators, or whether it's developers, whether it's data ops folks, whether it's business users, or any combination thereof. And quite honestly, a single person may kind of wear multiple of those hats, or be in multiple of those roles. It it is a challenging environment, to say the least. Has been and continues to be. And quite honestly, I believe most, if not all, would agree it's becoming more challenging as every day goes by. Now, this is the MAD landscape. For those that are or aren't familiar, it's been around just over a decade now. Matt Turk is the person's name. He's got some others that help him with it, but basically started just over 10 years ago, listing all of the, not all, the majority of key machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data tooling that exists in those environments. This is the 2024 version. I believe there's over 2,000 uh, uh, items listed on this slide. And by design, it's almost impossible to see the details. Not necessarily by design, but just based upon reality. 12 years ago when this started, I believe there was 157 icons on this eye chart, let's call it. This year, there's, again, over 2,000. These are really kind of specific to, modern data or modern data pipelines. And again, the complexity, especially in the last few years, is just exploded. Again, representative cooling that's used in an environment, in what I would say is more modern data type environments. But again, modern is a little bit of a loaded word. Kind of the like I mentioned, legacy earlier, doesn't necessarily mean good, doesn't necessarily mean here forever, but certainly just means more current, something that's kind of burst onto the scene more recently. And again, it's an unbelievably and complex environment, whether you're looking at business and kind of traditional or legacy system of record infrastructure data and applications, or you're looking at maybe some of the most modern or most recent infrastructure data and application elements in the landscape. It's chaotic and crazy environments. So let's step back now to open up the second poll, if we could. I'd like to just ask a quick question here of y'all. How many vendor provided business applications are available in the market today? So we've just got 4 categories there. I'll try to be quiet for a second, let you read it, and give an answer. Okay, give it a couple more seconds for some answers to roll in. It's hard to answer this one 100% accurately, but I believe just a couple years ago, Gartner indicated that at that time there were over 70,000 kind of commercial off-the-shelf business applications that existed in environments that companies across the globe helped them to use them to help deliver the business services or their business outcomes. Over 70,000. So the last couple slides we had, 50 icons on two slides ago. We had 2,000 on this last slide. In actuality, we're talking, exponentially higher numbers of those elements, over 70,000, and that was a couple years ago. So certainly that number is increased, if anything. And this is a significant part of the pain when it comes to managing enterprise business application workflows at scale. Each one of those, whether it may be more business application type of application or a more modern data or data pipeline application, every one of them, it's not an exaggeration to say every one of them has a built-in orchestration capability. So I've just got 10 or so here. I'm just kind of clicking through it as we go. I'm not going to mention every one. I mean, the original, the mainframe certainly does. Snowflake test scheduler. The first couple slides were Unix and Linux and Windows boxes. AWS step functions. Every time one of the new public cloud provider data services come out, there's yet a new one or a new iteration of an existing one for orchestrating and manage those workflows. And of course, Airflow is also a significant one that quite fantastic and gets a lot of use, but has some issues that we feel BMC and Control M can help address, specifically uh, targeting enterprise orchestration across a wide range, really any sort of infrastructure, data, or application. And so, as every time those charts get updated with a new infrastructure data application, there's a new orchestrator generally added all the time, and that becomes a bit of a problem, maybe a significant problem that limits the business, because now instead of having one orchestrator, you have two, or you have 20, or you have 200. And in that case, my position, our position is that if you then you don't have one, you have multiple, and that's a real problem. Having one single pane of glass to manage workflows, uh, whether they are the most modern workflows, whether they are the most legacy or traditional workflows, or whether they're really what most workflows are today, some combination of both of those. We feel like having a single one of those makes significant difference positively to the business. So here you can see kind of a stylized view of a flow of jobs. This is what Control M looks like, although I don't want to get too down into the weeds. I'll leave that a little bit more for Joe in the demo in a few minutes. But here you can see a workflow of a combination of both maybe some legacy and modern tooling. And it's a single view with some level of detail. If I advance the slide here a little bit, again, this is a slide, but this is exactly how you would see workflows run. Gray is waiting for something, yellow is executing, green means that the element has executed successfully. Of course, things don't always succeed. There's delays, there's issues, there are errors. A true enterprise orchestration solution can let any persona understand and visualize the status of those workflows, good, bad, or somewhere in between. So let's kind of get that over to the left-hand side and start to look at the way that manifests itself, or what that looks like for some various users or personas in the organization. Here we're looking at, again, we've got that kind of consistent workflow of 10 or so jobs on the left-hand side. Here could be a view that a developer might like. We're looking at JSON code where those jobs are defined in JSON. Not only can they be defined, they can be managed, monitored, altered, updated, right through an as code interface. No matter what type of job it is, no matter what infrastructure, data, or application that workflow is running in. And it can be the most complex workflow. Here we've got 10 or so jobs running across 10 of those different elements. This as code interface is possible. Here's a Jupyter notebook showing a different persona that might want to step through their workflow elements in this way. We have another view that is more a mobile device view that kind of surfaces it at a little bit higher level at the service level. How is payroll doing? How is my machine learning flow doing? How is my billing cycle doing? Inventory update. So there you can see at a quite high level service details. Of course, high level service details. Of course, details are available, but that is yet a different view. So here is a web interface view where, again, we start kind of at that service level view, but of course, a single click, if user is permissioned to do so can click on any of those to see the underlying jobs or individual workflow elements. Again, no matter what infrastructure data or application they are running in. Here's a little bit of an exploded view of one of those services with either expected or real start and end times with some of the details of how many jobs are in that service, what status those jobs are in, when the deadline is, how much time we may have before we're late, and that service is problematic. So a true enterprise orchestration solution provides an orchestration framework for all uh, business services and the underlying infrastructure, data, and applications. Recent Gartner DataOps tool market guide report came out, and as you imagine, talks all about DataOps tooling and some of the key capabilities or areas that need attention for organizations to have a level of maturity in their data ops environment. Number one on the list is data orchestration. So it's a fairly extensive report. There's a lot of tremendous detail, but first and foremost is the need for data orchestration. And that's what we're talking about here, the ability to see from a single point of control all your connected workflows, and have appropriate troubleshooting and alerting and service level views, in addition to maybe as code views, web interface views, mobile device views, for all those different personas that we talked about earlier on one of those early slides. The ability to definitely more capabilities that are listed, but we think that data orchestration message is not only fantastic, but absolutely true. The Data Ops Manifesto, which some of you may be familiar with, another organization been around for a while that always puts out top 10, top 20 lists. Orchestration is always mentioned as one of the key areas that need improvement in particularly modern data pipelines and data environments. So end-to-end orchestration of the data, tools, and codes and environments is fairly lacking and a big inhibitor of success. So with Control M, we take the stance that no matter how traditional your workflow may be, how modern it may be, or what is really in effect, actuality in most cases, it's a combination, a complex mix of both system of record legacy as well as modern data sources and tooling. The ability to orchestrate those in a single platform, providing key capabilities is important and can make significant improvements in the level of services that you deliver in your organization. So I talked about a couple of these already, a little bit high level. I'm going to spend just a little bit more time here, although when I turn it over to Joe in a minute for the demo, you're going to see a little bit more in detail. We really feel like no matter the underlying tooling involved, that there are 8 kind of key areas or requirements. We've talked about a couple of those already. SLA management. So don't show me the 500 jobs that make up my ML model training service. Somebody needs to see those details, and those details are available. But for many, they might want to start at a higher level view. How is my complex model training service doing? Is it good, bad, somewhere in between? If it's problematic, am I already past the deadline? Am I in violation of violating the deadline that might cause actual issues to the business down the stream? That's what we mean when we talk about SLA management. Of course, error handling and notification, it really goes without saying. These are massively complex environments. Even with an enterprise orchestration solution in place, bad things still happen. Being able to see where are those bad things, what were those bad things that happen, and notifying the correct users automatically is very important. So the ability to have enterprise scale error handling and notification, critical. The appropriate user interface for multiple personas. I mentioned it earlier. Airflow's fantastic for what it does. Generally speaking, though, it is preferred and has interfaces that are more applicable to a developer or a kind of a keyboard toucher persona. Not so much maybe for a business user or somebody that's more focused on a system of record application that's in the environment. But again, those applications need to talk to each other. So the ability to have a single solution, but with appropriate or kind of bespoke out of the box interfaces, depending on the role, is very critical and ultimately helps deliver better business services faster. Not only error handling and notification, but how about some self-healing and remediation? The ability to, no matter what the underlying workflow element is running is, the ability to interrogate and understand what is happening to avoid, to maybe take automated actions to avoid an error would be fantastic. DevOps practices, I mean, certainly in modern data pipelines, there's a lot of modern development practices that are in place compared to a few years ago. They're fantastic. They need to be supported with Control M. There's out of the box support for modern DevOps and development environments. So Joe will talk a little bit about that in the demo here in a second. Standards in production, all of this really, I'm not to say that it doesn't matter elsewhere, but it matters at scale in production. So the ability to have standards, regardless of the role or the underlying technology standards, help increase the level of those business services. And so that's very important to have. And then I already mentioned end-to-end visibility across really any sort of workflow, no matter where it's running or how many infrastructure data or applications are involved in a particular workflow. The ability to support them across the environment is critical. So these are really 8. Quite honestly, if we could go on and on for probably 80 kind of key characteristics or capabilities, but those are really a key 8 that we hear our customers talk about over and over again that we deliver with BMC Control M and BMC Helix Control M. And now really just the last slide for me before I turn it over to Joe. I just want to make a quick mention of one of what are thousands of customer stories that we have, and that's a story about Domino's. Domino's has been in business since 1960. It's now the world's largest pizza company, serves millions of customers online and at over 20,000 stores in countries across the globe. Basically, Deep D Sony, who's got a couple quotes on here, has said that they've become a technology company that delivers pizza. And I think that's really a fascinating quote and look into the business. We probably all know Domino's and are familiar with them as a pizza company, but think about it through that lens. Their Deep D manager of data quality and data ops and ML ops said that we're a technology company that delivers pizza. And they use Control M to help them do that. So complex workflow orchestration and dependency scheduling from a single point of control, a single view for their data pipeline visualizations that includes both the most modern data tooling as well as some of the most legacy or traditional data tooling. Proactive notifications when workflows fail, because they do fail. These are complex environments. The ability, Domino's, as well as really all of our customers, indicate that knowing where problems are at when problems occur is very helpful, and the ability to intelligently predict what those services look like, and the ability to give differing roles across the organization views that are good for them: operations, business users, developers, data professionals, you name it. It's Control M helps Domino's do all of that. Okay, so thank you. That's it for me for now. I now want to turn it over to Joe for a recorded demo video that he put together for us. And then after the demo, Joe and I will be back for some live Q&A.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining our webinar. In this demo portion, I'm going to focus just on the monitoring and what we call planning or management of workflows. So let's begin here. What we're looking at is a financial application. This may be run towards the end of a day when accounts are updated, positions are calculated, payments and reconciliation is done, a variety of standard financial activities. And the applications that are run in this workflow include job types composed of maybe SAP, database queries, data movement, a variety of other CRM and ERP type of functions. What customers tell us is becoming more and more common is that modern or new data intensive applications that have been built to take advantage of cloud and new data ecosystems are now converging with these business applications in a production environment. And so the conventional or traditional business functions are becoming prerequisites to analytics and a variety of new data intensive functions. And those new functions in turn are becoming prerequisites to further business processing downstream. And so the challenge is to be able to look at this diversity end to end as an entire business service. If you recall what you heard in the webinar about the fundamentals of what good orchestration is like, one of the fundamental requirements is support for a highly heterogeneous environment. And you see elements of that here. If we zoom in a little bit, in addition to the traditional business applications such as SAP and databases, as I mentioned, you also have a variety, and these, by the way, are just a random selection of many other integrations that are available. But in this one, we have support for Databricks, Databrew, Kubernetes, Data Factory, a variety of other cloud functions, and featured prominently is Airflow. In this flow, in two different flavors. So you have Cloud Composer or Google Cloud Composer and a standalone Airflow instance. We have worked hard over the last several years to ensure that Control-M provides a rich set of integrations for modern cloud and data ecosystem services so that you can orchestrate these kind of complex business applications that consist of both traditional as well as newer or data-focused components in the workflow. However, we also recognize that there are many organizations that have already adopted Airflow, and if you are in the position where you have data teams that either exclusively or at least partially are using Airflow, you can use our integration to be able to embed and combine this kind of composite applications and have it managed by Control-M end to end. Let's take a look at a couple of other capabilities that Control-M provides in order to enable you to manage this kind of an environment. So first of all, you can see that everything is shown to you graphically. Now this happens to be a single application, but even if we zoom out and take a look at all of the workflows and all of the workload that we are managing in our environment, it is all being shown to you graphically. And you can see their relationships if there are any. But of course, you can also focus into a particular application or a particular set of jobs and tasks based on a variety of different criteria. In fact, what you see across the top are a variety of tabs, each one composed of what we call a viewpoint, which is basically a filter enabling you to look at a particular set of jobs based on the criteria that you require. That's what we're looking at when we look at this financial application. When you select any job in a Control-M environment, you get a rich set of operational capability. You can see these in the menu bar, or you can right-click and take a look at the context menu that is state sensitive. If a job is running, you can kill it. If it's waiting, you get an option to either make it run or maybe bypass it or set it to appear as if it had run successfully. So again, quite a number of different options based on the current state of the job. In addition to the operational actions that you can take, On the right-hand side, for the job that you have selected, you have quite a lot of information. You have all of the job attributes and characteristics. You have the log, which shows you what Control M sees or knows about the job and its execution. You have the output, which is the output that is emitted or produced by the job itself. There are statistics. You can maybe look at what is the control language, attached runbook documentation if provided, and so forth. Control M also will automatically archive or collect all of that information and make it available for a couple of different purposes, which are quite important in an enterprise environment. This is Control M's workload archiving capability, and based on business rules that you define, the output and all of the data associated with the job is captured and made available within the interface like this. This allows you to both analyze problems, so if something fails, you can see how it ran successfully the previous time. Or maybe you can do a quick analysis of how many times it has failed over some period of time. And of course, if you are in a regulated industry like financial services, this is great for audit and governance requirements, which is a major consideration for many organizations in many different industries. If we go back to our flow, there's a couple of other important characteristics. The way this workflow is structured, it enables a degree of collaboration. If indeed you have different groups or owners for the traditional business workflow, let's say you have a business group or a finance group, you may have an IT ops group or some kind of analysis group. You have a data group that may, or data engineering that may own the analytics portion. You can see this little rectangle that's in the middle. That is what we call a subfolder, and it references a workflow managed or defined somewhere else. Based on role-based permissions that you can set up within Control M, you can allow the data engineering group to manage their own workload, while the finance or IT ops groups manage their own business workload. This also allows you to minimize or reduce the amount of information and knowledge required by a data engineering group in respect to Control M. So if they are indeed using Airflow, then they really have to know only very little in order to be able to construct their portion of the workflow in this overall business service. When you look at an Airflow job, you can also take a look at the details. So in this case, we're looking at a composer job. If we were then to select one of the tasks, we can even open the Airflow UI. You can see by the URL here that this is now redirected to the web server in the composer environment, and you can look at those details. Similarly, if you have a standalone Airflow, here too, you can take a look and you would see the specific task or set of tasks for this DAG that is being run. But of course, you can also take a look at the overall Airflow environment and interact with it however you need or wish to. Finally, the last piece of information that's really important for us to consider here is Control M's SLA management. You can see that there are a couple of SLA management jobs, and the way these operate is that they do several things. Of course, they tell Control M what the SLA or SLAs are for this workflow. It could be relative to the beginning of execution, like it has to finish in an hour and a half or 3 hours. It could be by a specific time. Let's say in our case, in the financial services application, this may have to finish perhaps by 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that before operations begin. When you define an SLA management job, Control M will automatically discover all of the tasks upstream that have to complete in order to be able to reach this SLA and meet or fulfill this SLA. The statistical information that I mentioned earlier is used to calculate the predicted completion time, and that predicted completion is then monitored against real time. And when it deviates enough that the SLA may be in danger, Control-M begins to notify as early as possible. Additionally, you can give this a business relevant name. And of course, there is a separate view to look at services. So we have filtered for finance, but there are many other services that might be in our workflows that we're managing. Let's return back to finance. And what we see here is a view that implements one of the other really important concepts, which is to deliver a persona-based experience for users of Control-M. You may have a variety of business users or non-technical users or people who are not really interested in learning a lot about Control-M. They just want to know if their particular business service or set of services is on time. And if it's not, when is it going to complete? There is, of course, the possibility to drill in and see the details and the jobs that we were looking at before, but it's not really necessary. And this allows users to get a dashboard, which is also available via a mobile app and lets them interact with Control-M at a relatively high level without having to learn too much about the details of the solution. Okay, let's quickly switch to planning, which is the section of the Control-M UI where you build or manage workflows. These are the folders and jobs that make up the financial application we saw earlier. And here you can see this kind of clear delineation between what is owned by IT Ops as opposed to what might be owned by, let's say, data engineering. In this view, I can easily amend the workflow. You can see the variety of jobs that I was referring to earlier, or job types and the types of integration that are available in Control-M. And each job and its structure is relatively similar. So much so that once somebody knows how to create any kind of a job, chances are they'll be able to create any kind of a job. And so let's grab one, drag it onto the canvas. We can see that as soon as we make a change here, there's an indicator that shows us that there's something new. If I make changes to an existing job, similarly, that is reflected in an icon showing me that there's a change. This is all part of version management, which allows you to track the versions of jobs, compare versions, fall back to previous versions, all within the Control-M environment. And this also is where you can graphically modify the flow easily by using sort of this click and connect mechanism, where you can make any job or folder the predecessor or successor to any other job or folder within your workflow. And you can do that very easily. You also have a variety of other functions like the ability to do bulk or mass updates and changes, validation. And when you construct workflows, as we'll see momentarily, when you even operate in an as-code fashion, Control-M provides something called site standards, which is a facility that lets you define what are the standards for particular application within your particular environment. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of standards that you can define for different applications, for different users, for different environments. And these standards not only allow you to enforce the standards in the organization, but also provide a guide for someone who may not be particularly expert in creating Control-M workflows. And so if we go back to planning for a moment, and we have a data engineering group that may be using primarily Airflow or some other set of tools, site standards would guide them in being able to create and modify or manage Control-M workflows. You can interleave and combine working in this graphical mode or exporting this and then working its code. If I were to export this to JSON, I could open this in VS Code or my other favorite editor. And this is what I have exported. I'm actually going to flip to the original JSON that I built myself, which is a little more compact because I originally authored this. And as you can see, it has kind of three major sections. There are the defaults that will apply to all the jobs themselves, and then finally the relationship or the flow definitions among those jobs. I can operate either in JSON as I'm showing you here, or there is a Python client available so that you can work in Python if that's what you prefer. Once you have Python, of course, you also have the ability to put these into Jupyter notebooks if that's your preference, and you could do that very easily as well. Control-M is fully REST API enabled, and we provide a CLI, whether it's because you happen to like working with CLIs or for automation. Our CLI is called CTM. I think that's probably a logical name for it. And if you look at the various functions, the ones that correspond to what we looked at or visited in the UI, run provides all of the monitoring capabilities we discussed, and build and deploy provides validation and the ability to check in, check out, or operate on and manage the definition of workflows. Let's just finish by running another instance of the workflow we began to look at initially. If I invoke the run service, this is submitting that JSON. If I can flip back to the web UI and take a look at the viewpoint that contains my financial application, I can see that it's running. Of course, there's color coordination, which shows you what's running, what's completed, what may have failed, what may be waiting, various different states. This has been a really, really quick flyby. I've touched on only a couple of the major capabilities. There certainly are a lot more, but at this point, let me return to the moderator for some live Q&A.
All right. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for a great presentation. We have a few questions here from the audience, so let's hop right in. First, I have one for Joe. I'm using dynamic tasks in Airflow. Can Control-M help manage those tasks?
Okay. Well, great question. Thanks for asking that. So what we showed in the demo, excuse me, is Control-M invoking an Airflow DAG. But similarly, from the DAG itself, you can invoke Control-M. We're working on a fully integrated Control-M operator, but what we've provided so far is just a simple bash script that uses the Control-M REST API that creates a job in Control-M, passing to that job the DAG ID and the run ID of the DAG that Control-M then can use to monitor that. And once you have that DAG in the Control-M environment, as you saw from some of the things that we that we showed you in the demo, you can very easily stitch that DAG into more complex flows and have other jobs interact with it to whatever degree you need.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Next, I have a question for Robbie here. So for customers that use both Control-M and Airflow, why do they do that?
Okay. That's could be a loaded question. I'll try to answer it fairly briefly. For existing Control-M customers, they have already built out enterprise workflow orchestration capabilities, kind of like the slide I had earlier with the 8 boxes on it, like error handling and automated remediation, standards across environments, bespoke, but natural interfaces for all the sorts of different users in the environment. That kind of list goes on and on. So for existing Control-M customers, they already have those capabilities in place for their workflows. The airflow integration basically means we provide all of those for workflows that also involve airflow, or quite honestly, any of the other kind of orchestrators or solutions that we talked about in those earlier slides. So that's why an existing Control-M customer would kind of go down that path or be interested in. For one use case or an example for airflow, let's say they're an airflow customer, but currently not a Control-M customer. Maybe they have multiple airflow installations. And if they have more than one, they don't have the ability to manage those workflows or holistically across the enterprise, right? So they could bring Control-M in to help manage all their airflow instances across the entire enterprise, in addition to all the other infrastructure, data, and application elements that they have. So give me 30 more seconds too, Corey. So, I mean, and I did mention it earlier, airflow is great for those users that are more kind of hands-on, the developers, that want an as-code interface, but that doesn't apply to everyone in the organization. So bringing in Control-M or using Control-M alongside airflow really allows all the personas, no matter what their preferred method of working with enterprise workflows is. It gives all of them the ability to do that through a single interface. So that would be just a few of the use cases why the two working together would make sense.
Okay, I appreciate that. Next up, I have another for Joe.
Okay.
There are lots of airflow flavors. Which specifically do you all support?
Okay, sure. So support for airflow, I would say, falls into two major sections. And all of the airflow flavors, as you say, that are available, as far as I know, have these two characteristics. So one is the functional side, triggering a DAG, monitoring a DAG, performing any other airflow operations. And then there's the authentication layer. So if you look at something like Google Cloud Composer, for example, GCP has added their particular version of authentication that is sort of GCP native, and we provide support for that. So the answer simply really is all of them. We, of course, functionally support the Airflow API for all the functional activities, and we provide support for Composer, Astronomer, MWAA, and of course, standalone Airflow. Those are the primary ones that we know of that we've come across among customers. But if another one should arise, then I think it would be a relatively simple task of addressing the authentication. The rest of the functionality is already there.
Okay. I have another one here that I believe is for Robbie. We use entirely modern development practices. Can Control-M support that?
It sure can. I mean, I mentioned it, but Joe showed, fairly high level because it was a fairly brief demo, but Joe showed some of that in the demo. Control-M jobs and other related artifacts can be created in JSON or in Python, and really can be consumed in any modern development tool or
I think you froze up a little there.
Last,
I think
I'm going to say 7 or 8.
All right. Well, I think looks like Robbie's cut out just a little bit there. So we'll pop over to this next question we have. Looks like we've got a couple more here in from viewers. Is it correct to say that Airflow provides the visibility of the backend data and status in Control-M when integrated within the folder?
So, seeing that Robbie doesn't seem to be available, I'll take it. I would categorize this a little bit more generally. I mean, what we see among customers Airflow kind of arose in the data engineering space for data pipelines. Control M really overlaps that. So we provide visibility and management of any kind of workflows, including data pipelines. The integration and using both of them, as we've discussed, is really a matter of customer preference. So if you have a team or a set of teams that prefer to use Airflow, they've either learned it in the past, they're more comfortable with it for whatever reason, then we want to enable them to continue to use it.
Okay.
If they're not, or they have no preference, then we believe Control M provides all of the same capabilities, so they can use only Control M. So it really is more of a, a background comfort experience consideration rather than what or how these tools operate.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, we have a few more here. Someone's asking how to justify the use of Control M together with Airflow, since both are technically considered orchestrators.
I think I disappeared for a second, but I'm back. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So I'll take a first stab at that one. I mean, really it is about the single point of control for complex application workflows. So think back to some of the slides I mentioned earlier where you're delivering a business service and there may be, it's not exaggeration to say dozens or even hundreds of underlying infrastructure, data repositories and sources and applications involved. Some of them may have been running and in place for 5 or 10, 20, 30 years. Some may be new, coming out of a new data team in the organization. Yeah. So the ability to have a single point of control and management for application workflows across the environment is really kind of the sweet spot or the use case for using Control M to orchestrate those elements.
Okay. Next up, do you plan to integrate Dagster in the same way?
So I'll take that. I would say yes. Right now, or today, as far as we can tell from the market in general and among our customers, if something other than Control M is being used, Airflow is by far the more common one. There's a number of new orchestrators that are sort of entering into the space and kind of competing with Airflow. Dagster is one of them. Prefect, Flight, there's a whole bunch. If adoption for those tools grows to a point where customers ask us to provide the integration, we certainly will. However, you can already today build integration. And whether we do it as a services engagement, if customers do it on their own, Control M has a component called Application Integrator, which is actually what we use internally to design and build our own integrations. As long as the tool that you want to integrate with has a REST API that is accessible to Control M, we can create, or customers themselves can create that kind of integration.
Okay. Looks like we have just one more left right now, unless that changes. Is Airflow widely used in EMEA, especially Africa? Would existing customers not rather make use of only Control M to fulfill the needs that can be addressed by Airflow?
Happy to take that one too. Certainly, many customers have made that choice. So, again, I think we've kind of discussed this, and I'd like to reiterate here that we by no means are suggesting that you should use Airflow if you don't need to or don't want to. We feel Control M does provide all of the capabilities required to orchestrate modern data pipelines, and that certainly would be our recommendation. It is only if we are coming either to an organization that is not a customer or if for whatever reason some unit or product team within the organization decided to choose Airflow and they want to continue to use it, only then do we, would we suggest or put forward this integration. I just want to close, and I think this might be my last opportunity. Airflow and others like Daxter and so forth orchestrate only data pipelines. That is what they say, that is what they claim, that's the position that they take. They do not manage business applications and broader, let's say traditional business workflows, whereas of course Control-M does. So, I certainly would urge every organization to look at their needs and requirements and make their decision on that basis. From a Control-M perspective, if you were to ask for our recommendation, we certainly would recommend, and we believe that Control-M provides all the orchestration needs that are required to manage enterprise workflows in production.
Okay. Well, Robbie, Joe, thanks so much for being with us today. Where can people go to learn more about BMC software and Control-M?
So certainly can go to bmc.com/control-m. One option, a lot of information available there. In the platform here today for the webinar, there are a number of handouts that you can access that will start you on your journey to get some more information about Control-M.
Cool. Well, to everyone watching, we hope you found today's session valuable and informative. If you have any further questions or would like more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, thanks for joining BMC Software and D-Zone today. Best of luck on your journey to better scale and manage your data.